Welcome to Rain Gardens, Barrels, and Buffers, how we are protecting lakes and rivers, and you can too. Green Mountain Conservation Group is a nonprofit charitable organization dedicated to the conservation of shared natural resources in the Ossipee Watershed since 1997. The Ossipee Watershed contains the Ossipee Aquifer, New Hampshire's largest stratified drift aquifer and drinking water resource. Stratified drift aquifers consist mainly of layers of sand and gravel, parts of which are saturated and can yield water to wells or springs. The sand and gravel deposits found in the Ossipee Aquifer were deposited by water from melting glaciers. These aquifers are high-yield aquifers that can recharge quickly with rainwater but are also vulnerable to easy contamination. Water knows no boundaries, and what we do that affects water quality in our backyards also affects our neighbors downstream. The Ossipee Lake Watershed Management Plan provides a roadmap for preserving water quality in the Ossipee watershed. As part of this plan, a build-out analysis and volunteer shoreline watershed stormwater surveys were conducted. Results of these efforts were used to run a land use model or lake loading response model that estimated the historical, current, and projected amount of total phosphorus being delivered to the lake from the watershed. Shorefront residential property was identified as a significant threat to water quality. Direct shoreline areas are typically among the highest for pollutant loading, given their proximity to the water. According to the 2015 Phase 1 survey, 62% of shoreline parcels showed characteristics detrimental to lake water quality, such as inadequate buffers, evidence of bare soil, and structures within 75 feet of the shoreline. After a storm, water that falls on soil is able to infiltrate down into the ground, eventually finding its way into the aquifer. Water that falls on impervious surfaces such as roads, driveways, and paved parking lots does not soak into the surfaces. Instead, it flows across those surfaces toward a low point. The water flows at increased speed over those impervious surfaces, scouring up oils, salt, and sediment, carrying phosphorus, nitrogen, and other chemicals. The flow carries the pollutants downward into the watershed and eventually deposits those pollutants into the lake. Best management practices can help reduce the amount of non-point source pollution entering the lake. These include structural designs such as rain gardens, barrels, and buffers. During the summers of 2019 and 2020, GMCG partnered with multiple private residents, businesses, and summer camps located on shoreline properties in Effingham, Freedom, and Ossipee. GMCG worked with these partners to design and install rain gardens, water bars, buffers, infiltration steps, and dry wells engineered specifically to reduce the amount of stormwater entering the lake. Now, finally, I'm excited to share with you the following projects. Site number 1, Camp Calumet, located in the northern point of the Big Lake. This site is located between the shoreline and a dirt road. Along this dirt road were multiple camp cabins and buildings, all impervious surfaces that were causing stormwater runoff to go down to the lake and cause erosion. There we found evidence of erosion, such as exposed tree roots. One area in particular was collecting a big puddle, a perfect place for a rain garden. Here's a concept drawing showing the cross-section of the rain garden. The center, the brown area, is planting soil, and around it is 3/4-inch crushed stone, a common material used in BMPs. Here's Bill Day, where volunteers are planting native perennial plant species. By choosing native perennials, you help to ensure that your BMP will last over the years. This rain garden project was completed in just one morning, thanks to these volunteers. BMP site number 2 is Camp Huckins, located on Broad Bay. Camp Huckins is another large summer camp with multiple cabins and buildings and their own beach. Here's the flow of the water going over the bank into the lake. And here's the trench. It's about 4 feet wide and 2 feet deep. It's lined with landscape fabric and filled with washed, crushed stone. BMP site number 3 is Danforth Bay Campground, located on Danforth Bay. Danforth Bay Campground is a large commercial campground which sees a lot of use in the summer months. This is the site of an infiltration step project located between a bathhouse and a sloping gravel driveway. Here's the original staircase where we found very severe erosion. Here's the drip line trench underneath the building. Here is another section of the eroded staircase. And below the staircase on the beach, we found many signs that too much water was making its way down. These designs were prepared by Forrest Bell Associates in Maine. And here is a midway point when the infiltration steps were being framed out. And these infiltration steps were filled with crushed stone. The steps were covered in boards, but with enough room between the boards so that water could still flow down into the infiltration stones.
Here we have a slope with a dirt road coming down to a driveway, all sloping down, down, down. And here we have a paved walkway, which is also sloping to a concrete walkway sloping down to the infiltration steps and the steep slope that goes down to Danforth Bay and the beach at the campground. Well, this is the dry well, and water comes down this paved ramp walkway, comes down into the infiltration step, and some of the extra runoff can make its way down this pipe into the dry well. And then here we have building with a metal roof, and water's coming down the roof and would normally spill onto the ground and create runoff down the steep slope to the lake. But now we have an
infiltration trench.
Yes.
And at the bottom of this 1.5 inch stone is a perforated pipe. So that pipe carries the water that runs off the roof into this dry well right here.
BMP site number 4 is Camp Maris, located on Levitt Bay in Effingham. Camp Maris has a large beach area and a lot of sandy soil. Here's the location of a vegetated buffer. This concept rendering shows the buffer designed to sponge up water coming down the slope. Here's build day, where volunteers are shoveling crushed stone around the inner vegetated buffer. The plants we chose were all native and perennial species. And because this is a summer camp, we were sure not to pick anything that had thorns or would attract too many bees. In order to infiltrate as much water as possible in this large expanse, this design turned out to be 30 feet long and 6 feet wide. BMP site number 5 is on Berry Bay at a private residence where we installed a water bar. A water bar intercepts runoff traveling down moderately steep downslopes and diverts it into stable vegetated areas to reduce erosion.
We are installing a water bar at this driveway in order to capture stormwater runoff before it gets down to the lake. Here I have a simple illustration by the Soak people where you can see a finished water bar design, and there will be 6x6 pressure treated beams inlaid flush with the ground here, and then around that we will be filling it with crushed 3/4 inch stone. That stone is going to slow down the water and infiltrate it into the ground before it reaches the lake. I'm here with some Boy Scouts today doing the hard labor, which is awesome, and we've got some hand tools and some powered digging equipment. But most of this water bar will be installed by hand.
A trench was dug by the Boy Scouts with help from the excavator, and 6x6 inch pressure treated beams were laid in the trench and anchored down with steel rebar. Next, the excavator helped dump in the crushed stone, and the Boy Scouts smoothed it out by hand. Through these projects, our volunteers not only helped get things done, but they had the opportunity to learn about water quality and the engineering behind each BMP. BMP site number 6 is on Deer Cove Road, which is on the northwest side of Ossipee Lake. This project was unique in that we partnered with 2 private residents who shared this beach area, as well as the town of Ossipee, whose road agent was in charge of maintaining this paved road directly on the beach. We built 2 dry wells lined with landscaping fabric and filled with crushed stone. Each dry well was approximately 4 by 3 feet and 2 to 3 feet deep. For this project, it was important to consider that people would be walking over these designs in bare feet. Thus, we chose a smaller, rounder pea stone as opposed to the 3/4 inch stone. The designs are not only functional, but look good too. And finally, rain barrels. Here we see the double rain barrel system installed at the GMCG office in Effingham. Rain barrels capture water from a roof and hold it for later use, such as on lawns and gardens or indoor plants, especially during a drought. Collecting roof runoff in rain barrels reduces the amount of water that flows from your property. It's a great way to conserve water, and it's free for use in your landscape. And that's just a quick recap of the BMP work we do at GMCG. Please visit gmcg.org to learn more.